بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, I welcome you all back into another lesson of Hidayatu An-Nahw. Alhamdulillah, we made a start on the book yesterday, and we got up to the point where we had just read the author's remarks about why he's writing this book. And just as a recap, he basically says that we, from what we read yesterday, he basically said that I'm writing this book following the structure of this famous book Al-Kafiyah, in terms of its chapters and sub-chapters. And to make Kafiyah easy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the text of my book easier to understand. Yes? And not just that. Kafiyah is difficult because it does not give you examples of the rules it's describing. So I would do just that. I would bring examples to make the concepts easier. And I will do one more thing. I would exclude any mention of of a discussion of evidences of these rules and the criticism of these rules, because obviously we don't want that to confuse our minds, especially not the minds of the beginners that I especially want to target with this treatise of mine. So this is in the khulasa of the last lesson, and this is what we got to. And so today we start with here, where the author says, so after I've described my ambitions to you, I say, وَسَمَّيْتُهُ, and I've named who this treatise, سَمَّيْتُ, I've named who this treatise, بِهِدَايَةِ النَّحْوِ, by the name of Hidayat An-Nahw, رَجَاءً إِلَى, hope, in the hoping, أي, that, يهدي الله, Allah guides, Ta'ala, Most High, bihi, through this treatise, الطالبين, the students of knowledge, the students of the Arabic language, Arabic grammar, and also, as we just read up here, al-mubtadi, so الطالبين al-mubtadi'in, so the beginner students of knowledge, right? That's why it's easy. Before we continue, I just want to make a small point. Please get in the habit of following the exact articulation of each word and marking your books with that. So here, when I said sammaytuhu, right? It's not simmituhu, okay? It's not summiyatuhu, summituhu. It's not sammitu. It's not summitu. It's sammaytuhu, right? So the exact tashkil, the exact the your diacritical marks, they're important, and you need to get in the habit of that, inshallah. That way you would save a lot of your time later on when you revise this book or read this book or even teach this book, inshallah, to other students. So you would know that, okay, this word is read like so, and you won't have to go and look it up in a dictionary, inshallah. So, especially the endings of each word, because that's what the point of grammar is, to teach you what the endings of each of these words are. For example, bihidayati, right? An-nahwi, right? Why it's e and not a or u? We'll cover it later. So raja'an ila an. So an, that nun is silent. An, we're making it meet with this ya. So this an yahdiya. So make sure that you make a tashkil here on the ya, and you say yahdiya. We'll explain why this is yahdiya, not yahdiyu or yahdi, right? When we cover this specific topic in the book, inshallah. So so just get in this habit of marking your tashkil points and diacritical marks, inshallah. So then the author says, now that I've told you my ambitions and I've told you the name of the book and why I'm naming this book Hidayatu An-Nahw, because I want this book to be a source of guidance for the students of knowledge, students of Arabic grammar, and Hidayah specifically because that Hidayah, Hidayah is always from Allah. The kind of guidance that is required for a student to flourish in his studies, that kind of guidance is always from Allah. And the tawfiq that Allah grants certain people to be able to guide others, right? And there's books on this topic of aqidah, which talk about the recipients of guidance and those who guide, and if it's right for a Muslim to believe that anyone else other than Allah can guide. So there's books on this topic, and inshallah it would benefit some students, the students of knowledge to read these kind of books, inshallah. If I get a chance, inshallah, we'll include some references to these kind of books in some later videos, inshallah. So then the author says, وَرَتَّبْتُهُ, and I've organized this, this treatise, upon muqaddimatin, a muqaddimah, an introduction. So you can read this as muqaddimah or muqaddamah. Both are fine. The only difference is that muqaddimah, it represents a doer, ism fa'il, and muqaddamah, it represents an object, so a maf'ul. But it doesn't change the meaning, and we'll explain later when the specific discussion of on this topic comes, why it doesn't change the meaning. But briefly, just so that you don't get confused. Basically, it's just like saying the tea was presented. So you could say a cup of tea was presented to me, right? Or okay, maybe that's not a good example. Maybe something like let's say I'm actually really thinking about a good example to explain this on the spot in English language. I mean, it makes perfect sense when we use it in the Arabic, and subhanallah. So muqaddimah is basically that is coming in the beginning, right? And muqaddamah, that is brought in the beginning, right? So what's the difference between being coming in the beginning and brought in the beginning? It's referring to the same point. It's referring to the same thing, right? Being brought or being there, right, in the beginning, it's the same thing. So I hope that briefly explains these words where which could be either fa'il or maf'ul, objects or doers, but they could they refer to the same meaning, same idea, so we can use them either way in a text, inshallah. So he says that I have organized this treatise upon a so he's detailing the parts of this book. Ala muqaddimatin, upon an introduction, wa thalathati aqsamin, three, aqsamin, parts, right? 3 parts. So there's an introduction, then there's 3 parts, wa khatimatin, and an ending. بتوفيق الملك العزيز العلام, right? بتوفيق الملك العزيز العلامي, right? If you were to read it with your tashkil. So there's a very interesting point here, and it points to the genius of the ulama in how they write books, and how I actually did mention that no word that's used in the books of grammar is used abathan, useless, in a meaningless way, just to fill up your book with words. If you notice here, he says that he's basically divided his book into 3 parts: a muqaddimah, 3 parts, the main body, and then an ending, right? And then he says al-Malik, al-Aziz, al-Alam, exactly 3 names of Allah, right? because he's talking about three parts of his book. And what is even more fascinating is that the names that he chose, Al-Malik, right? Al-Malik, Al-Aziz, Al-Allam, right? Al-Malik refers to the king, right? The overseer of everything, right? So that governs. Without the king, your governance or your area that is being governed, or any territory that exists, if it does not have a leader, it's going to turn into a complete anarchy and chaos. So this is the muqaddimah. If you do not have your grounding in this muqaddimah, in this beginning discussions of the science, your studies in grammar are going to be an utter anarchy and chaos. And then Al-Aziz refers to the name of Allah. The rough meaning of it is Al-Qawi, as the Ibn Manzur in Lisan al-Arab describes it. Al-Qawi, Al-Ghalib, right? So Allah is the one who is Qawi, all-powerful, and He's the one who dominates, right? And because this is the main body of the text, this is what dominates the whole discussion of Nahw, right? This is the meaty part of the discussion. So Al-Aziz, right? And then he uses the word Al-Allam to refer to the Khatimah. Now, if you want to pause the video quickly and think about why is he choosing the word Al-Allam to talk about his Khatimah. So pause the video now, think about it, and then come back, and if you haven't figured it out, we'll inshallah answer it for you. All right, so now that you have come back and hopefully have thought about it, Khatimah, right, is the ending of the book. And any author, being a human and being deficient in his knowledge and his understanding and his memory and in all his faculties, right, he can never compare with the Allam, the all-knower, right? So basically the author, rahmahullah, what he's saying is, yes, I've done my best, right? I've done my best, I've finished this book, but Allah is the all-knower. Allah knows best. Allah is, He knows more than I. And I'm a deficient human being, and this is the best ability, this is the best work I could afford. But Allah is perfect, and Allah is the knower, all-knower, right? And He's the one who knows best. Subhanallah. So then this is basically his foreword. Now he's jumping into the actual content of Arabic grammar. So now he says, as for al-muqaddimah, al-muqaddimatu ففي المبادئ التي يجب تقديمها لتوقف المسائل عليها. As for the muqaddimah, the introduction, then في المبادئ التي, then it is in the foundations, the beginning, discussions, the foundations, التي, which, يجب, it is obligatory, تقديمها, the bringing forth of it. So basically what he's saying is that as for this muqaddimah that he's talking about, this, the first part of his book, that muqaddimah is going to lay down, it's going to be about these foundations, the al-mabadi. Al-mabadi is when you build a house and the foundation that you lay for it, that's your mabadi. And basically, so he's saying that this muqaddimah is essentially your foundations, right? Those foundations which are so important that bringing them first is obligatory. Why is it obligatory? لِتَوَقُّفِ الْمَسَائِلِ عَلَيْهَا. Because all of these masail al-nahwiyya, all of these topics and discussions and rules of grammar and everything to do with the main text of this whole science, this whole field of inquiry of Arabic language, all of this it lays its weight on this foundation, the waqf, it stands on it, right? Alayha, upon it, right? So that's why he's saying that I'm bringing forth this muqaddimah to make you have strong foundations in this science, so that when you go ahead and actually start digging into the main text of the science, as embodied in this text, you will not fall. Your building will remain strong. And this is a very important point, because as we will understand in more detail the nature of Arabic grammar, right? The things that are being talked about in these mabadi, these are the things that would help you begin any sort of discussion that you can have in Arabic grammar. For example, if you want to have yajib, if you want to talk about this word yajibu, what do you know about this? Is this yajibu a word or a sentence? Right? How would you identify if it's a word or a sentence? It looks like a word, right? But what if it's a sentence? You can have a word in Arabic, and it could be just one letter, right? But it's a sentence. It's not a word. It's a sentence, right? So, for example, qi, right? Protect yourself, right? Be safe, qi, right? Avoid. So, it's just a qaf. Qaf with the two dots on top. So you need to identify these things, and how do you find out about these things, and then have any fruitful discussion about any of your text in Arabic grammar, let alone the higher texts, the important texts, the whole reason why we're learning these sciences, your Quran and your Hadith, is so that you could have those discussions. But you can't have those discussions unless you know these foundations. So that's why these foundations are so important. And so he says that in this muqaddimah that I'm writing, there's 3 fusul, there's 3 subsections, right? So this fusul is a plural for fasl, and fasl basically means separation. But in its technical definition, it means a separation or a separator between 2 topics that have nothing to do with each other. And therefore the ulama, when they write a book is divided into abwab, right? Abwab, different chapters, roughly speaking. And these abwab are basically doorways or gateways into different topics within a science, right? And then each of these topics are divided into subtopics, right? And so these fusul, right? These are these are your subsections in that one chapter. So even though these fusul are somehow related to that topic, they're quite disjoint in and of themselves. So this is your first fasl. So inshallah, this is where I think we should stop, and inshallah continue from tomorrow, and actually start with the meat and memorization of some of these definitions that are to follow, and the structure, and the ru'us al-thamaniyah. All of the nice stuff is yet to come, inshallah. But before we end this section, I want you to learn about something, which is that this author, what he's doing is he's giving you a mind map of the science. He's saying that I've structured this book upon 3 parts, right? Muqaddimah, 3 main parts, and then khatimah, right? And then he says later on that this muqaddimah is 3 parts, right? So essentially he's saying that you have this muqaddimah, right? Then if you were to draw say 3 parts, right? 1, 2, 3. Each of these 3 lines I've drawn for, say, imaginary lines. I don't have a whiteboard, so I could explain it to you. But essentially, he's drawing a mind map for you. So this is how you perfect your sciences. You learn an overview of the science. You learn an overview of the subject, and and when you can do that by simply writing an overview of a book, and because that book is supposed to encompass your science. Essentially, when you memorize or understand and internalize the overview of a book, you essentially are internalizing and memorizing an overview of the science itself. So memorize this big structure of the book today, inshallah, for this lesson, that this book is divided into 3 parts: muqaddimah, thalathati aqsam, and khatimah. So this muqaddimah is further divided into 3 parts. And what are those 3 parts? Inshallah, we will cover them in the next lesson. And what are these thalathati aqsam? These are again obviously related to the the main type of words that exist in the Arabic language, right? So nouns, verbs, and your letters that join these verbs and nouns. So each of these 3 parts are detailing each of those types of words and the rules associated with them. And then there's a khatima, and I'll end here by explaining that all the modern manuscripts of this book that I have found and I have looked at and studied, the author does not include the manuscripts do not include a khatima. I've tried looking for it. I cannot find it as of yet. Maybe we in the future we could find a manuscript, maybe an old manuscript in some library in India or in Pakistan that we have not been able to uncover. But inshallah, if we could find that such manuscript, inshallah, that would be good. But this khatima, as far as I'm aware, it does not really add much value to the actual discussion of the science of grammar, because the science of grammar is actually covered in this muqaddimah and these 3 parts. So even if we don't cover this khatima, and even though it's not available, at least not in the published versions of this manuscript, it's not important, because just like what we have covered so far in terms of the text of this foreword that we have read, it's just author's remarks. So I'm assuming that this khatima is again the author's remarks, and not much value to the actual science of grammar. So we don't need to worry about if the book that we have contains a khatima or not. This is one view. The second view is that the author actually talks about the khatima of the book actually is sort of merged with the last part, which talks about the huruf, the letters, and some say that the last letters, the last 3 subtopics that the author talks about in the aqsam, the qism of huruf, they're not actually huruf. He's just detailing some unrelated existence of certain entities in the Arabic grammar, which are nothing to do which are neither nouns, ism, they're neither verbs, they're neither asma, af'al, or neither huruf, such as tanween, such as your noon of ta'keed, and so on and so forth. So this is the second opinion, and I think this sounds a bit more reasonable. Maybe we haven't lost anything of the manuscript. It's just been merged in the existing manuscript. Allahu alam. Either way, even if we have lost a manuscript, it does not subtract or reduce our anything from our utility of this of this field. Inshallah, anything that is missing here will be found somewhere else in a different book. Allah has not hidden the knowledge that is beneficial, except that we might need to search and find it in different places. Allahu alam. Allahu a'lamu bis-sawab. Allah knows best. Allah knows the correct answer to everything. We merely guess based on our limited and deficient understandings, inshallah. So I would stop here, and inshallah we would start with the actual definition of grammar, the technical definition of grammar, and the first section of this muqaddimah, inshallah, tomorrow. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please don't forget to share this video Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and inshallah I'll see you in the next lesson. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.